According to the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission's July 2023 report, Nigeria's daily oil production in June experienced a slight increase of 4.59%, reaching at 1.24 million barrels per day. However, this growth was not sufficient to meet the OPEC quota as it fell behind the target. In May 2023, the production recorded 1.18 million barrels in the month of May. Well, Saudi Arabia, along with other influential members and major Gulf producers within OPEC, successfully convinced Nigeria and Angola were producing below their potential to adopt more realistic output targets. They started having a yearly benchmark of oil production target of 1.69 million barrels per day. Nigeria has struggled to achieve even 70% of that amount from January to April. Consequently, OPEC leaders contended that Nigeria must confront the actual situation and consent to reduce its production baseline in order to stabilize the oil market. All right, for more insight, we've been joined by Viola Kwaga. It's a senior research and policy analyst at Budget Foundation. So take a look at the impact of this now, and also assessment of the oil revenue in the first quarter and outlook for the second quarter. Thank you for joining us, Viola. We appreciate you for coming on board again.
Thank you so much for having me, Frank.
Yeah. So talk to us about how well do you think Nigeria has performed in terms of oil revenue in the second quarter of the year. So if you have to look at the first half of the year, do you think it has fared enough given the production output statistics?
I think the country has done relatively average, if we're looking at year on year or half year on half year performance. I mean, we've certainly come a long way from 2011 levels, where we were doing an average of 2.4 million barrels a day. We ended up declining to around 1.2, maybe 1.3 on average from 2020 thereabouts. And this has had serious implications on our government revenue. And for some people, it has been a silver lining to the extent that other non-oil revenue sources have sort of seen a climb. There is some speculation as to the way and manner the federal government goes about calculating these revenues. Quite recently, there was a report released by the NBS on how the federal government had, fantastically increased non-oil revenue, but the figures did not seem to really correspond. Anyways, that's by the way. So I will say that month on month, moving from the highs in May, I am wondering, what to make of this June analysis, especially looking at the fact that the systemic problems with the oil sector in Nigeria really have not been addressed. Yes, we have had the passage of the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act, which to a very large extent liberalized the sector and provided for the creation of new agencies, authorities, and commissions. We also saw the payment of outstanding arrears by the NNPCL, but there are still, serious systemic problems that are affecting the oil production sector, and by extension, that would affect our revenue and even the ground for investment by foreign investors.
Okay, but if you look at this drop in the month of June, do you think it is significant enough to affect the revenue drive or target of the federal government? And remember, of course, we don't have subsidy in place again, so we're trying to save money. I know the federal government talks about the fact that between when the President Tinubu took over power now, over 500 billion has been saved. Yes, that's a plus for us. But on the other side, where we're supposed to also generate, money or funds, it looks like there's a decline. But how significant would these affect, the change or of the scheme of things in terms of oil, revenue generation?
I think it would affect the scheme of things quite significantly if you consider just how much has been lost to oil theft and production shut-ins. Some agencies, one of them being AT, has claimed that Nigeria has lost 619.7 million barrels of oil between 2009 and 2020, and this has amounted to around $46.16 billion, or about 16.25 trillion naira. I mean, that's basically the size of a Buhari era budget. And this could have done significantly well for the country in terms of providing capital expenditure for infrastructure and interventions in health and education and perhaps even social protection. So this reduction, will I say, in the number of barrels, millions of barrels produced per day, would certainly have a huge impact. And one thing Nigerians, I think, constantly need to be reminded of is that, I guess, 2022, crude oil, or the oil sector, amounted to around 89.5% of total federal government revenues. So this is a huge, huge chunk of the nation's revenue earnings, and also contributing significantly to foreign exchange earnings. I might also add that the discontinuance of subsidy and the corresponding relaxation in exchange rate management, seen as the central bank is aiming towards unifying the exchange rates, might see an increase might see minimal increases in dollar availability, and of course more naira to share among the tiers of government. But in the medium term, will not really affect the volume of external reserves, because you are only earning more naira due to the exchange rate relaxation. More money is not really coming in per se. You are only getting more naira due to relaxation of the central bank rate and the parallel market rate.
Oh, okay. So with the current economic headwinds and challenges, how do we get above these when the government has challenges when it comes to, in terms of revenue deficit, or will I say, yes, budget deficit? That's quite a lot to be funded. So how do you think the government, rising from lack of funds, lack of enough funds, and they are looking for money at the moment to solve a lot of issues. So how do they rise up from this challenge, to address some of these, issues that is staring in our face? The issue of impact of subsidy, impact of subsidy is there. Subsidy removal is there on Nigeria. Quite a lot is also going on as well. So talk to us about this.
Yes, it's the urgency, really. Nigerians, the country as a whole is going through serious macroeconomic problems, running from the increase in inflation to the climb in unemployment to the problems with insecurity, and even that, spillover effect on food supply. I know that one of Tinubu's policy thrusts was to reduce food insecurity. I mean, that cannot be done without, investing significantly in the reduction of insecurity as a whole. But looking at this as a macroeconomic problem, the Nigerian federal government does need to take certain aspects of the economy very seriously. And two of them in particular are the ease of doing business environment and the political context. Now, the ease of doing business environment runs across things like, the free flow of foreign capital, runs with things like, policy certainty, and an indication by the federal government that it is open and willing to do business, and would allow foreign investors bring in their money, and repatriate it along reasonable lines, and ensure that the policies in whatever sector, whether they be in the extractive sector, whether they be in construction, whether they be in services, are predictable.